Why? Sarah married into our family and even gave you grandchildren. You should be grateful for that.
Exactly. There are people who can't have grandchildren, you know. We're offering you to help take care of them. So what's the problem?
I'm saying that attitude is the problem.
My husband is at his wit's end, trying to communicate with the two of them. My name is Catherine. I've been married for 30 years and have been blessed with 2 children, a daughter and a son. When my children were in middle school, my husband got transferred for work. But since the kids were attending a private school, we couldn't move with him. He had to relocate far enough that he needed to use a train for long-distance commuting, living alone in the process. Since then, I've been mostly on my own raising the kids. While I was grateful that we didn't have to worry about financial difficulties, their teenage years were incredibly tough. Now my children have all grown up, and just recently my son Kevin got engaged. I told him it might be better to wait a bit, save more money since it's only been 2 years since he graduated college. But he insisted he couldn't imagine being with anyone else. I thought it would be fine since it was their decision, but maybe that was my mistake. The first time I felt something was off was when we'd finished the initial meeting between both families, and Sarah came over to our house. She was such a lovely young woman, with straight silky hair and bright eyes. I could understand why Kevin was eager to marry her.
Mom, we're thinking about going with this plan for the wedding.
I was called into the room, and they showed me a magazine spread of wedding venues and packages. You two should be making these decisions, not me, I said. But the plan was at a famous resort hotel with an oceanfront view from the wedding venue. The breathtaking scenery pulled me into the magazine's photos. The price listed below the pictures, though, was also quite high.
I figured you guys have a budget, and I wanted to get your input,
Kevin said, as if expecting us to cover the costs. Sarah didn't seem to think that was unusual either.
The food at this level would be fine,
she said, showing me the page. Of course, as parents, we'd assumed we'd be helping out with the wedding costs, but did they expect that as a given? Their mindset left me scratching my head. After Sarah left, I asked Kevin, "It's fine if you want to get married, but isn't relying on your parents' money from the start a bit off? Are you sure you're okay with your future finances? Do you have any savings?"
A wedding is something parents want, right? We don't have savings, but we're both working, so we'll save up quickly. You're worrying too much, Mom.
I was stunned by Kevin's words. It seemed like he had no idea what it meant to start a family. Swallowing my pride, I contacted Sarah's parents to discuss the wedding expenses. Even if the parents were paying, I thought it wasn't right to set the budget without any input from their side, especially since they'd likely be contributing too. If we were a wealthy family, I might have offered to pay the full amount, but we're just a regular middle-class family, and with our daughter likely to marry in the future too, we couldn't spend all our money on Kevin alone. Thankfully, Sarah's parents shared similar values. They even suggested that if the couple didn't have enough money, maybe they should skip the wedding entirely. But a wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event. I told them that I would love for them to have a ceremony, even if it was a small one, and we agreed on a more modest wedding. I was relieved that Sarah's parents were easygoing and reasonable, but that relief was short-lived as Kevin scolded me for meddling.
Don't go behind my back and contact Sarah's parents. She wanted a real wedding, and now it's a restaurant wedding. I wanted to make her dream of a grand hotel wedding come true.
I thought to myself, this is why I suggested saving money before getting married, and let Kevin's words roll off my back. Before we knew it, the wedding day was upon us. The restaurant wedding could accommodate up to 50 guests, according to the pamphlet, but it ended up being a small, intimate ceremony with just family. You could have invited your friends too if you wanted a fancy wedding, right? I said to Kevin, but he mumbled back.
Well, it's expensive.
Turns out he didn't have any close friends to invite. After the wedding was over, I congratulated the two of them again. Congratulations. You looked beautiful in your dress. So, when's the official marriage registration date? I was just trying to make small talk, and when Kevin started to respond, I saw Sarah jab him in the side with her elbow.
I think the whole mother-in-law relationship is strange. I married Kevin, and from now on, we're going to build a new family together. You're no longer involved. Stop interfering in our business.
I was shocked by Sarah's blatant hostility. My husband, standing beside me, was also frozen in surprise, and Sarah's parents were staring at their daughter, mouths open in disbelief.
We're going to be happy together, so don't butt in. Let's go, Kevin.
Yeah, that's how it is. Just leave us alone from now on.
Kevin added as he followed after Sarah. All we could do was stand there, stunned, as they left. Afterward, my husband snapped out of it and was furious.
He's no son of mine. Don't ever let them in this house again.
He was fuming, but after that, we didn't hear a word from Kevin and Sarah. While it was somewhat a relief not to have to deal with them as a mother, I couldn't help but wonder how my son was living his life. I tried sending him a message now and then, but although he read them, he never replied. During the time we lost contact with Kevin, my daughter, Mary, got engaged to a wonderful man. Unlike her brother, Kevin, she and her partner insisted on paying for their wedding, so I assumed it would be a small ceremony. However, it turned out to be quite the event, with many friends and coworkers in attendance. Her husband even decided to set up their new home near us, since his workplace was far from his family's house. Now that my daughter had become a stay-at-home wife, she often invited me out for lunch or shopping, making sure I never felt lonely. Meanwhile, we still hadn't heard from Kevin. He probably didn't even know his sister had gotten married. Soon after the wedding, my daughter became pregnant. She didn't plan to stay at my place for the birth, so I happily went to her house every day to help take care of my grandchild. Those days were some of the happiest of my life. 2 years passed, and out of the blue, I got a message from Kevin.
I'm coming by tomorrow.
It was a curt message, but I had already promised to drive my daughter and grandchild to a doctor's appointment the next day. I'm busy in the morning, so I can't, I replied. He read it, but again, no reply. The next day, as if he'd read my message, Kevin and his wife showed up in the afternoon. I hadn't seen them in so long, and both of them had noticeably gained weight. What's going on? Are you feeling okay?
Well, actually, Sarah gave birth last month.
I was asking about their weight, but Kevin, smiling happily, started telling me about the pregnancy instead. Sarah, too, was smiling happily.
And here's the crazy part. It's triplets.
Triplets. I was genuinely shocked when I heard they had triplets. Sarah hadn't said a word up until that point, not even a greeting.
They're still in the hospital, but all 3 will be discharged in 2 days. The doctor told us raising them is going to be tough, so he said it's best to have help from people around us. That's why we've decided to move in here so you can help with the babies.
Absolutely not. Why did they decide this without even asking me? That's beyond presumptuous. When I immediately refused, Sarah cheerfully began to speak.
Catherine, you'll get to help take care of your adorable grandchildren. This is the time when families should support each other.
And by family, who do you mean?
Huh?
I'm moving out next month to live with my husband. My daughter's child is already enough for me, and I'm very happy spending every day helping her. So, I don't see any reason to go out of my way to take care of someone else's kids. Is that all you needed? Kevin and Sarah's faces turned pale at my words.
What? Mary got married? When? And she has a child? Why didn't I know about this?
I told you everything over text. Maybe if you didn't ignore my messages, you would have known.
I never saw those texts. Sarah, did you?
Kevin turned to look at Sarah, who averted her eyes in embarrassment. She must be the type of person who snoops through other people's phones. I figured that Sarah probably saw my messages and opened them before Kevin could, canceling or tampering with them somehow. Whatever, but like I said, there's nothing I can do for you.
I'll take back what I said about not being family, so please, at least help with the grandkids. If that's too much, maybe you could send us some money every month for their sake.
For the first time, I saw Sarah, usually so composed, starting to panic. She probably assumed I'd be eager to help, thinking I'd be desperate to care for my grandkids. I'm not going to spend money on anyone who isn't family. Why don't you ask your parents? Both of them fell silent, looking uncomfortable. Don't tell me you said you weren't family to Sarah's parents too?
Well, actually, Sarah quit her job right after we got married, and with just my income, we couldn't make ends meet. So her parents gave us a lot of financial support. But we couldn't cook, so eating out every day made the money disappear fast. When we kept asking for more, they finally told us not to come back.
I was beyond exasperated. That explains their weight gain. Eating out every day, indulging in whatever they liked, and being told never to come back? I bet they accepted that money with a sense of entitlement, without a shred of gratitude. I had considered giving them a generous amount as a baby gift, but I quickly changed my mind. The thought crossed my mind that if I spoiled them even a little, they'd never be able to stand on their own. Go home for today. You've got preparations to make for the triplets coming home, don't you?
Mom, we haven't even bought cribs or strollers yet.
If you're both working, the first thing you need to do is reevaluate how you're spending your money. Sell those brand name bags and clothes Sarah has, and figure it out on your own. Just go home and do what you can for now. I practically shooed them out the door. As I told Kevin and Sarah earlier, I started preparing to move in with my husband. Actually, my husband had been transferred back to this area, so we decided to sell these houses and buy a nearby condo. With the kids grown up and out of the house, and this being a 50-year-old home we inherited from my in-laws. We figured this was the perfect opportunity to move on. Sorting through the kids' things and organizing the house on my own was a massive task, and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to finish it in a month. I spent my days packing, occasionally taking a break to visit my grandchild, but I kept getting calls from Kevin almost every day.
Mom, don't you care about your grandkids? It's really tough. Someone's always crying.
Get support from the local childcare services. If you go to the community center, they'll help you out. Bye. If they had been kinder to me, I might have been willing to listen, but the way they thought they could use the grandkids as leverage annoyed me. Sarah also sent me a ton of pictures of the triplets. They were undeniably adorable in the photos, so I responded with lots of heart emojis. The day before the move, my husband came back, and we were finishing the last bit of packing and cleaning together when Kevin and Sarah unexpectedly showed up again.
Mom, are you really okay with this? You might never see your grandkids again.
Exactly. They're only this cute for a short time, and triplets have a special kind of cuteness. Why won't you do anything?
I was taken aback by their complaints as soon as they opened their mouths, but two of the triplets were sound asleep, and the third was happily chewing on a towel. I couldn't help but smile at how cute they were. Did Sarah's parents forgive you? When I asked that, the two of them fell silent and looked down. I could tell they hadn't changed their attitude one bit. I thought once you became parents, you'd understand how we feel a little more, but I guess not.
You say they're adorable grandkids, but you were the ones who cut ties with us. You said it yourselves, so take responsibility for your words. Don't come back here. Go home.
My husband, who hadn't seen Kevin since the wedding, was still holding on to the frustration from that time, and his tone was harsh.
If you're going to sell the house, why not just give it to us? I'm the eldest son, aren't I?
We've already sold this house and used the money to buy our new place. Whether you're the eldest son or not doesn't matter. This house is ours, and what we do with it is none of your concern.
But if we had this house, we wouldn't have to pay rent, and it would make things so much easier.
Kevin, sounding like he was about to cry, must have been in serious financial trouble. Why are you so strapped for cash? Didn't you say your salary wasn't that bad? I don't think you should be struggling this much, even if you're not living lavishly. Kevin and Sarah exchanged awkward glances.
Well, actually, I quit my jobs. I got headhunted by another company that promised to double my salary, but it turned out to be a terrible place to work, and instead of making double, I ended up making half. So I realized it wasn't going to work out and quit last month. I'm looking for a new job, but I haven't found anything that pays as well as my old company yet.
Kevin, with tears in his eyes, pleaded. I understood things were tough, but that didn't change the issue at hand.
I get that it's hard, but what bothers me is your attitude.
What do you mean? Sarah married into our family and even gave you grandkids. Shouldn't you be grateful for that?
Exactly. Some people can't even have grandkids, and we're offering to let you help out with them. What's the problem?
I'm telling you, it's your attitude that's the problem.
My husband was holding his head in frustration, unable to reason with the two of them. Please, just go home already, I said, feeling completely drained from the conversation.
Mom, I came to help. Oh, Kevin, It's been a while.
My daughter poked her head in, looking surprised to see Kevin. I hadn't told my daughter about the recent frequent contact from Kevin and his wife, as I didn't want her to worry. She thought they had been out of touch since the wedding, so she was genuinely shocked.
Hey, Mary. What are you doing here?
I've been coming over all the time. Wow, triplets. They're adorable. Are they yours, Kevin?
Yeah.
The two of them were clearly flustered by my daughter's sudden enthusiasm.
They don't look anything like you, Kevin. They must take after Sarah, huh?
No, that's not true. Just look at their eyes. They're just like Kevin's.
Sarah was acting suspiciously nervous.
I don't know. It's a good thing they all look like their mom.
Enough. Let's go, Kevin.
What? But the money.
I'll ask my parents again.
In a rush after my daughter's arrival, Sarah quickly loaded two of the triplets into the stroller, handed the third to Kevin, and hurriedly left, carrying a big bag of stuff. What was that about?
Did I say something wrong?
Maybe those aren't Kevin's kids after all.
That's not possible. My husband joked, though it wasn't funny. I brushed it off, but a shiver ran down my spine. Talking to those two left me completely exhausted, but I couldn't dwell on it. We hurriedly got back to our work. Since that day, we hadn't heard from Kevin and Sarah. But a few months later, I suddenly got a message from Kevin.
I got divorced. I need to talk.
They got divorced. Given how tense their relationship always was, it's no surprise things didn't work out. Some might think I'm a cold parent, but I didn't feel much of anything about it. My husband and I discussed what to do and decided to meet him and hear him out. By the way, we hadn't told Kevin our new address. I was worried that he might show up with the kids and refuse to leave. We agreed to meet at a nearby diner. When I saw Kevin again after so long, I was shocked. He had gone from chubby to painfully thin, and I thought for a moment he might be sick. "Are you okay? You're so thin."
I've got no money.
Kevin hung his head, and my husband and I exchanged concerned glances.
So, what happened with the divorce?
After what Mary said, I secretly did a DNA testament and found out they weren't my kids. When I asked Sarah, she just kept saying she didn't know anything. But I couldn't raise kids that weren't mine, so I told her, and then she demanded alimony.
Tears began to fall from Kevin's eyes as he spoke.
I sent Sarah back to her parents, but then the real father of the triplets sued me for being the other man and demanded compensation. Apparently, she was seeing both of us at the same time before the wedding, and now everything's a mess. I've been going to free legal consultations, but I'm so busy and mentally exhausted that I got sick and haven't been able to work.
Kevin wiped his tears and hung his head.
I didn't want to trouble you and Dad anymore, so I've been getting by with part-time jobs, but I'm at my limit.
What's going on with the alimony?
My husband sat there, arms crossed, with an expressionless face. There's no way I couldn't love the child I gave birth to and raised. I couldn't help but feel the urge to lend him a hand, and I was thinking it might be best to bring him home for a while, help him get back on his feet, and then encourage him to become independent again.
The lawyer said I don't have to pay it, and that I should actually be asking Sarah for compensation. But I can't afford a lawyer or court fees.
I see.
My husband stayed silent, clearly thinking deeply about something. I couldn't tell what was on his mind, even as his wife. Do you have any jobs prospects?
Not yet.
All right.
My husband looked up, as if he had made a decision.
I'll find you a job. After working for about a year, you should have enough money to cover the legal fees and get back on track. You'll be able to manage.
Actually, I can't even pay this month's rent.
You can make it work by picking up multiple part-time jobs, doing day labor. If you're desperate, you'll survive for at least a month.
My husband was determined to push Kevin away as much as possible.
Kevin, you cut ties with the family on your own. How many hurtful things did you say to your mother while playing the dutiful son only when you needed help or money? People who use others when it's convenient always end up getting burned by someone just as rotten as they are.
No.
Kevin's tears didn't just stop. They kept pouring out, flowing uncontrollably. My husband was completely right, and I silently listened to him speak.
Work hard. Rebuild your life on your own. When you do, maybe we'll be unnecessary to you again. I'll send you the details about the jobs later. Catherine, we're leaving.
With that, my husband stood up, leaving the crying Kevin behind, dropped some money on the table for the check, and quickly walked out of the diner. Even though my husband and I had only ordered 2 cups of coffee, he left a $100 on the table, which made me realize that deep down, he still cared about our son. I wondered what our son thought when he saw that money. Later, my husband did indeed find Kevin a job. It wasn't high paying, but it was enough for him to live alone and save a little. A year after Kevin started working, he filed the compensation claim against Sarah and managed to get a decent sum. We listened to Kevin's update on speakerphone together. The conversation started with an update on Sarah's life. It turned out she had remarried the triplets' biological father, but since he had only dated her for fun, they fought constantly and divorced within 3 months. Although Sarah received a small amount of child support, within a year she ended up divorced for the second time and returned to her parents' home. However, when she started leaving the kids with her parents to go out and have fun, her parents lost their temper and kicked her out of the house. Now she was living in a mother-child shelter, had found a daycare, and was working part-time to get by. When Kevin saw her again, accompanied by a lawyer for the alimony case, she had broken down in tears, making it impossible to have a rational conversation. Although she now lives on the small amount of money she earns from her part-time job, it is not enough for her to live with the 3 children. Her once shiny hair was now dull and messy. She wore no makeup, and she looked like a completely different person. Since then, Kevin hasn't seen Sarah, but the alimony was paid in one lump sum. Kevin took part of that money and went to apologize to Sarah's parents. Kevin calculated the amount of financial support he had received from Sarah's parents and returned it with an apology, only to be met with tears as they told him, "If you had been more responsible, none of this would have happened," which he said was very painful to hear. Back then, Kevin admitted, all he could think about was Sarah. He was so blinded by her beauty and popularity that he ignored the damage he was causing to those around him. He regretted it now, saying that if he had been more responsible, his life would have turned out differently. But regret doesn't change the past, and it doesn't make anyone happy. Both my husband and I had lost any warmth we once felt toward Kevin.
I want to repay you for the wedding costs too.
Kevin said weakly.
Not until you've rebuilt your life.
My husband said before abruptly hanging up the phone. While we recognized that Kevin was truly remorseful and trying to grow, what he had done couldn't be forgiven so easily. If he continued to reflect on his mistakes and learn to cherish his family, maybe one day we could sit down for a meal together again. But until the day he became a true head of the household, protecting his own family, I couldn't bring myself to accept him back. It was an experience that taught me how easy it is to coddle your children, but how important it is to push them away when needed. From now on, it was just me and my husband, starting a new chapter of life together. As lifelong partners, I swore to do my best to ensure our days were filled with smiles,